All right, Rabotai. Tonight we're studying Parashat Vayera. Parashat Vayera is very, very known for Akedat Yitzchak. Not for nothing, Akedat Yitzchak is one of the most spoken about episodes in the Torah. And it's, I think, from the most known episodes. We have it in supposedly every day's prayer. Every day before Shacharit, at the beginning of Shacharit, we read the Akedat Yitzchak. We read the Nisayon, the hardest Nisayon of Abraham Avinu, of taking his son Yitzchak to the altar. Akedat Yitzchak. We read it on Rosh Hashanah. We read it in so many occasions where we need Rahmanut. Yet, Akedat Yitzchak is one of the hardest things to understand. So every year, to be honest, I try to have a different perspective on the Akedat Yitzchak. Usually we study the actual Akedah. How could it be that HaKadosh Baruch Hu asks a human being to take his son, Lo Alenu, to kill his son? If you understand Kipshuto, the simple meaning of the words of the Akedat Yitzchak, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is ordering something that seems very illogical. This is a very difficult episode to understand. There are a lot of questions on this episode, and Baruch Hashem, over the years, we've given different perspectives, different ideas, and this year, I thought we were going to do something a little different, although the questions still remain, I believe, but this one area that I was studying, and I think is fascinating. And really, without any further ado, I'm going to take you straight into the core of the subject by asking two very small questions. We know that there's a midrash in the Chachamim, and in the Gemara it tells us also that whenever the word Vayhi is used, Vayhi is not something positive. Vayehi means normally, Vayehi, here it introduces the story, Vayehi achara devarim ha'ele, and it was after these things. So the last episode, we'll go back to that in a minute. After the last episode, Vayelohim nisa et Abraham, HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides to test Abraham. Vayomer elav Abraham, Vayomer hineni, HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls on Abraham. Vayomer hineni, he says to him, here I am. I'm ready to listen. Rabotai, Vayhi achara devarim ha'ele. Number one, what is the connection with what's before? There's no such a thing as introducing a subject just by saying achara devarim ha'ele, after these things. We know that the Torah is very particular. Every word counts. If the Torah comes and says achara devarim ha'ele, after the last episode, that means that there's a connection between last episode and this episode. It doesn't just tell you, historically, this comes after something else. Well, obviously it came after something else. You just have to look at the previous story. Whenever the Torah tells you, achara devarim ha'ele, after these things, that means that there's a strict connection, a very strong connection between the previous episode and the next episode. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention the sponsor for today's class. My mistake. But today the class, although it's written on the pamphlet that we give out, but tonight the class is sponsored by our dear friend Gabi Feldman in memory of his grandfather Yitzhak Ben Adelina Gittel and his grandmother Rosabat Miriam. Ruach Adonai tenichem began Eden. Amen. I'm sorry about this omission, but here we are rectifying. Thank you, Guillermo, for reminding me. May their soul rest in peace, Bezat Hashem. So back to the question that we had. Vayhi achara devarim ha'ele, va'elohim nisa et Abraham. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to test Abraham on the Akedat Yitzchak. And the Torah starts and introduces this subject by telling us, it was after these things. After these things means that there's a connection between the previous story and that Yitzchak. What we need to do is to try to understand what the connection is. Just so that I don't leave you in the dark, but the previous story is basically the story that the Torah is telling us about Abraham making a great dinner, a great feast in the honor of Yitzchak Avinu becoming a little older, becoming a little more independent. Maybe we would call that maybe these days a bar mitzvah party, or I don't know, what age or whatever. But the point is that B'yom Higamer et Yitzchak, Abraham Avinu was very happy at Yitzchak as a son. He made a pretty beautiful party, invited a lot of people for a feast to celebrate the birth and the becoming older of Yitzchak Avinu. Okay? And then it tells you, it was after these things. Elohim Nisayet Abraham, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to do the biggest Nisayon to Abraham Avinu. Rabotai, first question, what is the connection between the two? Normally you could ask the question even if it doesn't say these words. When there's one episode of the Torah and it's followed by another episode of the Torah, it's called Simuchin. One is next to the other. Why did the Torah choose this order? That already is enough. And but here it says, the Torah is clearly making a point that there's a very, very important connection to make between the previous story and what we're about to read, the Akedat Yitzchak. The question is, what is that connection? The second question is, Vayhi, as I said before. Vayhi, the Chachamim say, whenever it uses that word, Vayhi, and it was, it's not just to introduce something that happened in the past, but it's something negative. It is a negative thing happening or that happened. There's something negative in that story. The question is, what is negative about this story? So I would like to read to you something that the son of the Rambam, his name was Rabbeinu Abraham ben HaRambam. The Rambam had only one son, and his son Rabbeinu Abraham says something very interesting about that first pasuk. Because there's a third question that we could ask based on that, is first the pirush that he said. Vayhi achar ha'devarim ha'ele va'Elohim nisa et Abraham vayomer elav Abraham. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu called Abraham. Vayomer hineni. He answered, here I am. Listen to what the son of the Rambam had to say. I quote in English. How great the difference between Abraham, who answered the divine call with the word hineni. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu called Abraham, he famously answers, hineni, here I am. And Adam, who when God called out to him, what did Adam say? HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Adam HaRishon, Ayeka, where are you? After he sinned, he was kicked out of Gan Eden. He says, where are you? What did Adam HaRishon answer? I saw that I was naked, and so I hid. Vayera, ki arum anochi vayechabe. Said, I saw that I was naked, and I hid. The Rambam says, the son of the Rambam, Rabbeinu Abraham ben HaRambam says, look at the comparison between the two. One has a great answer, one has a mediocre answer. Abraham Avinu, he's always answering the call of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, hineni, here I am, ready. Adam HaRishon says, I was naked, I realized I was naked, and therefore, vayechabe, I hid. Says the son of the Rambam, this is a mediocre answer. Abraham, 5-star answer. Adam HaRishon, mediocre answer. Rabotai, what does one thing have to do with the other? Abraham Avinu was not being reprimanded. HaKadosh Baruch Hu just came to him and says, Abraham, I have a test for you. This is it. Abraham, vayomer hineni. By Adam, there's no comparison between the two situations. By Adam HaRishon, he was being reprimanded. HaKadosh Baruch Hu called him, after he ate from the Etz Hadat Tovara, and he came to demand answer from what happened. And he calls him, Ayeka, where are you? Adam knows he did something wrong, and he answers, I'm hiding because I'm ashamed of what happened. And the son of the Rambam is saying, well, one answer is mediocre compared to the other. What do the two things have to do? One was a regular call. So of course, if I call you, hey, Moshe, what do you say? Hi, how are you? How can I help you? Hineni, here I am. But Adam was like, hey, Moshe, why did you do this? You become defensive. You come and you say, no, it's not really me. We know Adam Arishon is afterwards going to say, Haisha shenatata imadi, it's the wife you gave me. And if it's not the wife, it was the Nachash. He's defensive because he's being accused of something. So how could you compare the answer of Adam with the answer of Abraham? It's two different situations, nothing to do one with the other. Rabotai, first, in the surface, it means the following. It means that Abraham is being reprimanded. It means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a ta'ana on Abraham. It means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if the son of the Rambam is comparing Adam's reaction with Abraham's reaction, it means that Abraham and Adam are at the same level at this moment. It means that God has a call to them with a problem. He's coming to reprimand them. He's demanding an answer for something that they did. In Adam, it's clear. In Abraham, it's not clear yet. We're going to discuss that in a minute. But as of now, this is the only way to understand what Rabbeinu Abraham ben HaRambam is doing here. When he's comparing both answers, it must be that it's two similar cases. It means that Abraham also is being reprimanded. Now, reprimanded in what? I'm going to read to you the Midrash. The Midrash is making that connection between Vayhi Achara Devarim Ha'ele, the first question we said, when it introduces the Akedat Yitzchak with that pasuk, after these things happened. What happened? What these things happened? What is the connection with the previous story? It's so important that the pasuk puts it black on white. Achara Devarim Ha'ele, Va'elohim Nisa et Abraham. That's where we're going to find the mistake. If we find a mistake there, then we got the answer to our problem. Why the Rambam, the son of the Rambam, was saying that the case of Adam and the case of Abraham are similar. In their answers are very different. So I'm going to quote to you Bereshit Rabbah, Midrash Rabbah. And this is what it says. I quote, the Akedah took place. The Akedah took place after Hirhure Devarim. What's Hirhure Devarim? I would call that deep meditation or self-analysis by Abraham. Oh, that's a good beginning for what we're looking for. There was something that Abraham was worried about. There was something Abraham did that he didn't feel comfortable. Don't forget that there's a story right before, and the story of the Akedah, they are connected. And the son of the Rambam is saying there's something there that is reprimanded by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And what is that? Says the Midrash, I continue reading. It has to do with the special celebration arranged by Abraham in honor of the weaning of his son Yitzchak. The story prior to the Akedat Yitzchak, where the Torah is making a link between the two, is the story of Abraham making a great party in honor of the weaning of his son Yitzchak. Do you remember how this party was called? This party was called, in the words of the Torah, Mishte Gadol. Abraham made Mishte Gadol beyom higamel et Yitzchak. He made a Mishte Gadol, he made a great party. He made a very big banquet. But the Chachamim say, the big banquet? We understand, you could say Mishte. What's Mishte Gadol? No, a big banquet. Maze Gadol? Says the Gemara and the Midrash, Gadol shegedolim hayusham. There were a lot of great people. There were kings, there were princesses, there were dukes, there were important people the creme de la creme of society of Abraham Avinu. We know Abraham has a position of power, according to many Ma'amarei Chazal. He was himself the king of Canaan. So Abraham had a lot of connections. When he made the party to honor his son, who did he invite? He invited a lot of the Gedolim, a lot of great people. So we're slowly building a story. Abraham Avinu made, the Torah tells us that there's a connection between the Akedat Yitzchak and the previous story. What is the previous story? The party that Abraham did. What is the party that Abraham did? A lot of Gedolim were there. A lot of important people were there. Okay, what's the problem? Says the Midrash, Abraham had Hirhur Devarim. He was thinking a lot about what happened. Something was bothering him. Something happened that Abraham couldn't take it. And the Benu Abraham ben HaRambam tells us he was being reprimanded by God. That would explain Vayhi, by the way. Vayhi was Lashon negative. Why is Vayhi negative? There's something negative happened right before. These things, something happened there that was not good. And what is it? Gedolim Hayusham. I quote the Midrash. Only the great ones were there. But where were the Ketanim? Where were the simple people? Where were the regular people? When he had to pick who he's going to invite and who no, it was clear. Abraham invited the Gedolim, Mishte Gadol. The Mishte banquet were only great people, only important Hashuv people were there at the banquet. But the Midrash says there was no mention of Ketanim. There was no mention of the small people, the ordinary human beings, the poor, the marginal, the unwanted. Where are they? Rabotai, this is Abraham Avinu. Don't you remember? If I ask you one thing you remember of Abraham Avinu, everybody thinks of one word, chesed. His house was open, no walls. Everybody is welcome. So what happened? He makes a party for his son. He makes a beautiful banquet. And who does he invite? Gedolim, the important people, the princes and the princesses. What happens to the regulars, those who you open the door to, those Arab merchants that you give them the tongue and the food? The simple people, where are they? No, for the banquet, he didn't invite them. Why not? Why wouldn't he invite them? Rabotai, I'm going to give you an example of that I lived. I don't intend to offend anyone, and I'm being very grateful to the people who I'm going to talk about. But there was always something that bothered me a little bit, and you may understand it, you may not understand it. The story is the following. The first time I came to the United States, I was in the yeshiva in Brooklyn. The yeshiva was called Torat Mima. It's on Ocean Parkway and Ditmas Avenue. It's a beautiful building, very, very nice building. I got in there from the yeshiva in Gateshead, in Europe, in England, and I was accepted in that yeshiva. It's a very, very good level, a high level yeshiva. And I got in. And I became friends with some of the boys. It's Ashkenaz yeshiva. One of the boys was a phenomenal guy. I'm not going to say any names. Invited me to his house because every Shabbat, the boys is very Brooklyn boys, and they all go home for Shabbat. So I was from out of town. We're a couple, very few guys from out of town. One guy from England, one guy from Toronto, one guy from Chicago, one from Cleveland, and me. So, Shabbat in yeshiva was very small. So we all got invited. And there's one guy, very nice person. He invited me to his house. I got to meet the family. They were very, very, very nice to me. I became very close to the family. I had a code to their house. I would go often to their house. And until today, we have a connection. I hope that they're not listening to this class, because I'm going to say one little thing that chas v'shalom, I'm telling you, the intent was pure. They never intended bad, but I'm going to tell you, and maybe you're going to understand. I'm going to make another little introduction to this. Last week, was Chacham Ovadiah's 7th year of the passing. And on Shabbat, I spoke on Shabbat afternoon in the shul. I'm not going to say again what I said. One of the points I said was, you have to understand that when the state of Israel started, the Sephardim were used mamash like second or third class citizens. They were used like, but same thing. Like we have, cleaning ladies and things like this. That's what Sephardim were for the Israeli society of the early days of the state. And this went on for a while. I don't think this was overnight changed. And until today, many Ashkenaz people in Israel have a very negative view on Sephardim, right? They're looking at the Sephardi as a second-class citizen. In some circles, it's still like this till today. There was one Chacham who fought for that, Rabotai. This is reality. What I'm telling you now is not politics, is not racism, it's fact. This is fact. I've countless stories, and you know that that's true. And if you don't find out, ask anybody. This is fact. The Sephardim, second-class citizens. Chacham Ovadia Yosef single-handedly put back the Sephardim in a higher level. He was the first one to open a political party that was Sephardim. He was the first one to bring the Torah to a high level, more than anyone could ever imagine. He was the first one to relate to everyone, Sephardi, Ashkenazi, everybody. But he had single-handedly, he brought back the Sephardim to a level that was never known before that. Sephardi was always more naive, more simple, and the other people took advantage of that. It's terrible, but that's the fact. This is fact. If today the Sephardim have some kind of resemblance of being at the same level as everybody else, it's thanks to Chacham Ovadia. So I spoke about this, and I would like to come back to my story, because actually before my story, throughout those years, many Gedolim took care of the Sephardim in a very good way. Rav Shach, for example, took in the yeshiva of Panovich a lot of Sephardi boys. He was taking care of them. In the yeshiva of Baltimore, they took care of the Iranian kids. And many yeshivot Ashkenazim that had a program for the Sephardim. And now there are two ways how to look at it. You have the way how to look at it as, wow, kol hakavod, they took care of the Sephardim, although it was Ashkenaz yeshiva, etc., etc. And then you have the other way of looking at it is, hold on, if we are all from the Klal Israel, right? Are you looking at the Sephardim as the second-class citizen? You're taking care of the second-class citizen? Or no, I'm taking care of them and putting them like regular, like everybody else. I want to say, unfortunately, that many, many times it looked like the first way, which means, look how nice we are that we're taking care of these chazits, the Sephardim, who don't have a yeshiva, they don't have a structure, they don't have a thing, and therefore we're taking care of them. Now, I want to say a little bit that that's how I felt. That's a Sephardic kid in the yeshiva that nobody wants to be with, and therefore we're going to invite him. That's always going to be, look, you are different, you are lower, and we are nice people, we're taking care of you. It's very nice. I have a karat tov, I have nothing against it. The only problem is that you're always going to be, almost like this Hazit, who he's not like us, he's Sephardi. So we do chesed with him. Chacham Ovadia didn't want that. Said, don't do any chesed, it's fine, we'll handle ourselves. He opened Sephardi yeshivot, or Sephardi kolelim. Yeah, we're going to make our own thing. And that's why he restored the kavod to the high level. I felt the second way. I felt the other way. It means, you know what? You are Sephardi, we're going to help you. But like Chazit, we're going to help you because, you're not like us. If you understand what I'm talking about a little bit, it could be that right there we have another way of relating to a poor person. When you help a poor person, and this is, Rabotai, we have to think about this 100%, and we are probably all guilty of that. We are very charitable, we try to help, we try to relate, etc. It's always going to be, I'm the rich man trying to help the poor man. Which means that you are under, but I'm helping you. I don't relate with you. I only relate with you because because I need to do my mitzvah of tzedakah. But you're something else. And you know when you could realize if you made a real connection with a poor person? When it's time for the simcha, when it's time for the banquet, when Abraham was supposed to invite now his friends, when he's supposed to invite certain aspect of society, who did he invite? That's how deep we go. You could be a great Baal Tzedakah. Your house is open to everyone. Abraham Avinu, who could be more charitable and more generous than Abraham Avinu? When came the moment to invite people to his simcha, who does he relate with? Who is his social circle? Who is these people he calls my friends? That's a big test. And the Midrash tells us, Mishteh Gadol, when he did the banquet, Gedolim Hayusham, Aval Hechan Ketanim. All these people that Abraham claimed that he's helping and he's making a part of his life, blah, 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 blah. Great, it's all great. But that's not the real level of generosity. The real level of generosity is what Pirkei Avot say, Ve'yu aniyim b'nei betecha. The aniyim should be, what's b'nei betecha? One would understand, in your house there should be poor people always hanging out there, you give them parnasah. No. That's not what it means. You aniyim b'nei betecha means the aniyim should be part of your household. They should be like you. That when you make a party, you don't make a difference based on if these people are from the creme de la creme of society or these people are not. Why would it make a difference if somebody has money, you invite him to your party or not? Well, Abraham did make the difference. And Abraham was reprimanded for that. And Abraham felt bad about it. And that's the first introduction. Vahi achara devarim ha'ele, there's something negative. Vahi. And there's a connection with the Akedat Yitzchak. And according to the Midrash, this is what caused the Akedat Yitzchak. Let's see how sensitive you are. Is it really that your son is much more important? Abraham says, if I have to sacrifice my son, I'm willing to sacrifice my son. And here, after this long introduction, we could start to understand what the son of the Rambam said. The son of the Rambam said, the reaction of Abraham and the reaction of Adam are very different. We asked the question, how could you compare reactions when we're not talking about the same case? The reaction of Adam is after being reprimanded by God. Where are you? What happened? You ate from the Etz Hadat Tovara. He's accusing him. He's demanding explanation. And Abraham, he came to him and just said, hey, I'm going to give you a new nisayon. Okay. He says, Hineni, here I am. And the Rambam, the son of the Rambam said, no. They're comparing both cases, which means the same way God is reprimanding Adam. He's coming with an accusation on Adam. He wants a reaction from Adam. And Adam hides. And he says, ooh, I realized that I made something wrong. So too, Abraham is being reprimanded by God. Why? Because of what happened. Because Abraham, who was at the level to make this distinction. Abraham was at the level to treat the Bnei Beto, the Aniyim, to be like Bnei Beto, to be mamash part of his life, and he didn't. That was the accusation against Abraham. That's the first part of the class. Now we could compare the reaction of Adam and the reaction of Abraham. The son of the Rambam again says, let's compare the two. One is the mediocre reaction, and one is the top reaction. Adam says, oh, I realized I was naked, and therefore I hid. Abraham, being reprimanded, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him what happened here. What does he say? Hineni, here I am. What does Hineni mean? Rashi says, Anava vezimun, with humility and with preparedness. I'm ready to change. I'm ready to do whatever you ask me to do. This is the right reaction. And I would like to talk about this a little bit. Adam and Abraham are both responding to a bad conscience, a call to a bad conscience that happens. Abraham is passing the test in a high level, and Adam is not. Adam just says, I heard your voice in the garden. I saw that I was naked, and so I hid. This is the reaction of most human beings. When something happens, we realize we did something wrong. We have awareness of shame and disgrace. And what do? We hide. We run away and we blame others. Usually that's what happens. Blaming the situation. Blaming others. Why did you do this? Why did I do this? You ask yourself, well, because the situation is different. Because this person, because that person, etc. That is what I call the reaction of Adam. I hid. What do you do with that? Nothing. Do you change? No. I hid. Abraham is different. Abraham, he comes and he says, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu demands something from him, after the introduction that we gave, he comes and says, what happened? What does he say? Hineni, here I am. Meaning, I face my problem. I face my reality. If I messed up, I will correct myself. I want to do better. I want to grow into this. I had last week, about 10 days ago, we had a meeting with a florist and decorator and Bezat Hashem, making a wedding for my daughter, Bezat Hashem. And we're meeting there and they show us things. Oh, mashallah. When you make a wedding, they show you things, pictures and videos of what they could do. And I'm like, whoa, this is gorgeous. I have a budget, You're showing me things. This is a $1 million wedding. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something nice, something mechubad. I have a budget. And the way I formulated to the lady, I said, well, there's only one problem, is that I'm in a budget. She looks at me in the eyes. So go, yeah, but you have to learn from everyone. You have to learn from everyone. She looks at me straight in the eyes, says, sir, there's no such a thing as a problem. There's only opportunity. In our business, she says, it's an opportunity for creativity. When you limit us with the budget, it's opportunity for creativity. If I have no problem. If I could throw the whole house, no problem. I'll make something gorgeous. My creativity now needs to be put in place. How am I going to do something gorgeous with X amount? You're giving me an amount. What can I do the best, the nicest thing with that amount? There's no problem. It's opportunity for creativity. And I say the same thing to us. When we make mistakes, one could look at the mistake, have the awareness. There's no awareness, there's no possibility. The awareness and hide and blame and shame others and the situation and not take the responsibility. That's Adam. Abraham didn't do that. Abraham, he stands up and he says, Hineni, here I am. Because there's no problem. There's no mistake. There's no failure. I mean, there are mistakes. We don't call that a failure or a problem. It's an opportunity to do something better. It's an opportunity to become better. It's an opportunity to be more creative. That's how Abraham saw it. Hineni, here I am. Did I mess up? Yes. Okay. I'm going to do better. Let's move on. That's Abraham. He was able to change himself. He was ready to change himself. I'll give you an example in halakha and then a secular example. In halakha, one of the worst averot a person could do is chilul Hashem. Chilul Hashem is the worst. People talk bad about the nation of Israel. People who act in a non-exemplary way, and they represent the Klal Yisrael. Chilul Hashem, the disgrace of Hashem. People are going to say, look at these religious people, how they do. When they say that, lo alenu, it's the worst thing that a person could do. And there's a question. How could you rectify Chilul Hashem? Sometimes it's too late. What are you going to do? You go home and you think, oh, I shouldn't have spoken, I shouldn't have said, I should have done this, I should have done that. I represent people, I should have kept quiet. Okay, but many times it's too late. What can I do about this? Done, gone. Chachamim tell us, there's always something you could do. And you know what that is? If you did Chilul Hashem, then do Kiddush Hashem. It's not going to be rectifying the problem because that person is gone. You don't know who it is. But do Kiddush Hashem with someone else. You even it out. What does that mean? I think there's a deeper understanding in that. It means, number one, look for opportunity for creativity. You cannot rectify something. Don't give up. Don't say, oh, that's it. My gosh, I'm burning in hell. I don't know if that's true. But one thing is true is that now you have an opportunity. An opportunity to do something. There was one of the actors in Israel who was acting in very not clean movies, to say the least. And there was a lot of scenes that later on in life he became religious. He wanted to buy back at the time, all the VHS. He was trying to buy them all back. At least it was not like today. Today, it's in the internet, you cannot buy anything back. That's it, the pictures are out, etc. But he had a lot of scenes that he wanted to buy back, and he bought a lot of them back, but he couldn't buy everything back. So he went to a rabbi afterwards, and he's still alive, he became himself a rabbi. And he said, what can I do about this? He said, well, you made a lot of people sin because there was a lot of unclean scenes, triple X movies that he was making, and he became religious. How can you rectify it? Impossible to rectify. People have sinned with these movies. How can you do that? You don't know who they are. How could you ask mechila? Impossible. Will you go back? You could have done a kadam. You hide. What are you going to do? No. You know what he said to him? He said, go and do the opposite. Try to make others do mitzvot. So what did he become? He became a speaker, a public speaker. Himself was an actor. When you're an actor, you know how to act. You know how to speak in public. You have no problem with that. Use your talents for the good. And since then, he became one of the most popular people who go around the country in Israel, Israeli, and he tries to get people to kiruv, to come back. What is that? Take an opportunity from something negative. Transform something negative into something positive. You're not going to rectify it. What happened, happened. Too late. Abraham, the party is finished. The banquet is gone. He did not invite the poor people. Finished. There's nothing you could cry your whole life about this. Or you could say, you know what? I'm moving on. Hineni, here I am. Giving ourselves an opportunity. And here I'm going to come to my famous uncle. My famous uncle is, for those who don't know him, he's not so famous then, but for those who would listen to my class, my uncle became famous. He's a non-believer, married my aunt, he's a non-believer, he's a tough cookie to deal with. Anyways, to make a long story short, it was my brother's wedding. And by the chuppah, the rabbi is going to marry my brother. He's going to do the kiddushin. He's a big rabbi, very important rabbi. And my uncle says, oh, this guy, he called him by his name. I'm like, no. The rabbi say, Rabbi Daniel, whatever. He says, no, this one I cannot call him rabbi. I'm like, why can't you call him rabbi? Because we used to hang out, we used to go, when we were 16, 17, we did a couple things together that he cannot be a rabbi. I looked at him and said, yeah, now I understand why you never gave yourself a chance to become better. Because when he was 16, 17, he did mistakes. Therefore, now that he's 57, you cannot give him kavod. That's Adam Arishon. You sinned, you hide. What do you do about this? Nothing. You don't give yourself a chance. Abraham is not this. Abraham sinned. HaKadosh Baruch Hu called him. What did he say? Hineni. What did Rashi say? Anava ve'hazmana. He's muzman. He's ready to do something. He's ready to change. And there's countless stories of people who have done these things. One of the greatest people who did that is who? Very famous person, Mr. Nobel Prize, Alfred Nobel. Who was Alfred Nobel? He's the one who invented the dynamite. After seeing the disasters that were happening in war, instead of killing one by one, it was killing by the thousands. He had a moment that he decided that he's going to try. The Nobel Prizes started with peace prizes. It was only peace. Then it became about economics and physics and math, etc. He put a lot of money, he gave a fortune for awards to those who contribute to the advancement of peace in the world. And that became the famous Nobel Prize. Why is it called Nobel Prize? Because Alfred Nobel is the one who did that. And here again, you have someone who could not go back in time, could not rectify the mistake, could not give life to those who died because of his dynamite. But what he could do was do something else. Be ready to move on, to do something better. Will not rectify, but to do something else. And that's what Abraham did. After he made a mistake, after these things that happened, he had a remorse. He had a problem. He didn't feel good about what happened because he only invited the Gedolim and the Ketanim. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu called him and he says, Hineni, here I am. He didn't hide behind a curtain. He didn't hide in his room like Adam HaRishon. What he did was come to the front. He said, here I am, ready to change, ready to advance, ready to do something new. You have a new project, you have a limitation, that's called an opportunity for creativity. I'm ready, here I am. I may be limited in my things, it's okay. I'll find a solution, I'll find a way, I'll move on. That's builders. Builders find solutions. That's Abraham Avinu. And so now we understand deep line of the Rambam, of the son of the Rambam, sorry. Rabbeinu Abraham ben HaRambam. You read again those two lines. He comes and he says how great the difference between Abraham, who answered the divine call with the word Hineni, here I am, and Adam, who when God called out to him, where are you? Answered, I saw that I was naked, and so I hid. They were both called on something that they did wrong. And both had the opportunity to answer one way or the other. One decided to move forward, and one decided to stay backwards. And with this, we understand the introduction to the story of the Akedat Yitzchak. And I hope we could learn from that for ourselves.